So I think that's maybe important to mention. And Hail Satan. What else? No, I think that would be it.
Actually, I want to ask one more thing. How many members are part of your church?
In South Africa at the moment, there's just over 12,000 Satanists.
We are
Are you ready?
I'm not used to it again. No, it's fine. No, it's all good. Okay, and we're live. What's up, everyone? Today we are back in the normal studio in Cape Town. Last week I was in Durban to do a podcast with Shannon Lee Visser, and it was absolutely incredible. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. It's worth a watch. Today's guest is Rian Svigler. Sorry, I don't think I said it right.
It's okay.
He is the founder of the first satanic church in South Africa, and he is also a psychic medium. So welcome to the studio.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
Yeah.
And thank you for the platform and for the opportunity.
No, it's awesome to have you here. I think let's just jump straight into it. I want to ask, when did you decide to start the satanic church?
Okay, so I think it's very important to also mention that the South African Satanic Church was co-founded by Audrey Norton and myself. So we have been talking about that for quite a while, being Satanists ourselves. And the determining, let's call it the thing that flipped the switch for us was we noticed more and more that Satanism wasn't represented properly in the media, and there were no Satanists coming forward and saying, okay, sorry guys, but this is what Satanism actually is and what it is we do. So we've been Satanists for more than 4 years before we actually founded the organization. And in that time, we spoke to a lot of other Satanists in South Africa especially, and they felt the same as we did. And it was almost like nobody wanted to come forward publicly, and that was a problem for Satanism because of the way it was represented in the media. And certainly there is Satanists that I know that have been Satanists for more than 20 years, but because of their professional capacity and being in the medical profession and some people being in the legal profession, etc., they could never actually come out and say, okay, we are Satanists and sorry guys, this is not what's happening. So that was the determining factor. First and foremostly, like why we wanted to register the organization and have it as a recognized religious organization. The process of doing that, though, was very, very easy. And I remember when Audrey and myself submitted the documents to the Department of Social Development, we said, okay, if we're going to get resistance on this, it's probably a sign we shouldn't do it now and people aren't ready. Within 48 hours, our organization was registered. So that was quite amazing. Yeah.
And you said that you had been a Satanist for 4 years.
Before. So now it would be 6 years.
And what were your beliefs before you discovered Satanism?
So interesting. I grew up in a very average middle-class Christian household, very Afrikaans middle-class household. Very there's a word for Calvinistic almost. So initially that I never quite felt at home with that, although during my high school years, I kind of figured out that spirituality or religion would be my career one day. So the first thing I did was I went and I researched how to become like a pastoral therapist, and then I went
what?
A pastoral therapist.
What's that?
So it's like being a pastor, but you counsel people instead of standing up on a pulpit. So that was my first thing then, was to actually go and study theology and learn more about the Bible and trying to understand it. And then after, and I'm not here to diss any religions, that's not what we're doing, but for myself, certainly after I studied the Bible intensely and read it and understood where it comes from, and I didn't resonate with that at all. And then I left Christianity in about 2006, and then I delved into paganism for a while. I also didn't feel quite that worked for me, and then through my mediumship work, I was also introduced to other beliefs and stuff. Nothing really stuck to me, or that I could say, okay, this is me. And then I remember the first day I read the Satanic Bible, I immediately recognized myself in that. And that's why we, in all our interviews and correspondences with, like we're doing today, we would say that you can't make somebody a Satanist. You can't turn somebody into a Satanist, and certainly we don't do that. We don't evangelize. We don't try to convert people to Satanism, because we know that Satanists are born Satanists. And it's something that you would discover one day when you are introduced to Satanism properly the first time, or read the Satanic Bible. Then you would say, okay, this is something that resonates with me, and I completely see myself in this, or I don't. And to us, it's completely fine, because we believe people should have that freedom to find what works for them, or not be religious at all. If we look at religion, religion isn't even for everybody. So you will get people that say they're more agnostic, or they're atheist, or whatever. So as Satanists, we honor that, and we certainly want everybody to be able to express themselves freely in that way.
And what about Satanism resonated with you?
The very first thing was that I am completely responsible for my own life. I'm completely in charge of my own life. I can't rely on anything external, whether it being, guides, angels, external deities, God, a devil, whatever. So we don't believe in any external being, whether it being the devil or Satan or anything like that.
So you don't have to answer to anyone?
No, it's ourselves. So the very first thing that resonated with me is that I am completely responsible. And Satanism is a path of self-study. So it's constant self-study and getting to understand who you are and how to have the best life here on earth. So it's a very much a carnal religion. It's very much focused on earthly existence. It's not, we have no prescribed dogma about the afterlife. So we also allow other Satanists to believe what they want about the afterlife. So some Satanists would believe in reincarnation, and some people would believe more in Darwinism, and some people in evolution, and some people just believe it's a switch that goes off. So there's no prescribed dogma when it comes to the afterlife. It's very much focused on earthly the earthly incarnation and getting the most out of your life here on earth.
So you said you started the church, or you co-founded the church, and you kind of touched on this, but why do you think people hadn't done that already? Why do you think no one had stepped forward and gone, let's do this, let's make this happen?
Yeah. So
you think it was because they were scared, or?
Yes. If we look at South Africa and the South African religious arena, if you want to call it that, it very much governs the way that people are perceived and treated. So whether people like this or not, even though we have a very liberal constitution in this country, one of the best constitutions in the world, in fact, and our constitution guarantees freedom of religion. That doesn't mean, though, that gets applied everywhere.
Doesn't mean freedom of judgment as well.
Correct. So in the workplace and in public schools especially, there's very much still religious privilege. So there's this perception that if you are a Christian or if you belong to certain Abrahamic type of religions, you are a good person. And therefore you can be better at your job, or you're more acceptable to people, etc. So, and like I said, even before we registered the church, I've known quite a lot of Satanists, now hundreds of Satanists, and a lot of them have been Satanists way longer than me, so they're probably more qualified. But I don't think they are in the position to come forward and show their face and say, this is what I do. So I think that's a very, very big reason. I think the other reason as well is that this is not just in the religious arena, this is probably everywhere, is that not everybody wants to be the target of what might possibly come their way, in terms of, because obviously, we were very prepared for what was coming, in terms of hate mail and death threats and that type of thing. And certainly we had a lot of that initially. That has changed a lot, surprisingly, over the last 6 months, because we are educating people on what this is, and
also people get over it.
Yes,
people
definitely
like to make a fuss.
Yeah, humans will human,
and then they move on, and it's similar to like the thing with my work is like, even speaking to you today, like I told someone who practices Satanism, and And she was like, you're going to get a lot of backlash for this, most likely. I'm not saying that I will, but I like to have open conversations and talk to different people from different backgrounds. And a lot of the time you're stepping into territory that can get you into trouble.
Of course.
And I'm very emotional. Like, I'm a pretty emotional guy. And I don't take criticism. I get criticism all the time, and I've got used to it. But it does get to me. So, I mean, when you started the church, and I read a lot about when you started the church, and there was a lot of backlash on social media. How did that take a strain on you? And I mean, did that
It didn't, to be honest with you.
didn't hold you back at all?
No, because we were very prepared for what was about to happen, except in terms of the exposure and kind of being recognized everywhere you go. We weren't prepared for that, and
It's great advertising.
Yeah, and we didn't foresee it growing as fast as it did within a year period. We kind of had a 5-year plan, if you want to call it that. So everything we thought we wanted to achieve in 5 years, within the first 10 months to a year, we got there. But I mean, I was definitely prepared for the backlash and the comments, etc. And then at the end of the day, whether it's about Satanism or whether it's about being gay or whether it is about standing for something, the things that people the things that people tell you and the things that people say to you is more a reflection of who they are. It's not really about us. We just probably mirroring something to them, or we're bringing up certain things for them. And on the one hand, that is great that happens, because we are being instrumental in certain ways, even if it's for people to question their own beliefs.
And what kind of backlash would you get? Like,
So,
what were people saying?
well, obviously, I mean, there's a lot of people who still think that we somehow involve their devil in what we do. So if you try to view any religion through the lenses of your own religion, you're probably not going to get it. And it's also okay. But the death threats was quite intense, and it got very real at one stage. And then it kind of sussed out. But then there was really, really like beautiful things that happened, where certain parents started contacting us and saying, thank you, I actually understand my child better now, and I'm not as concerned. Or people coming up to me in public and thanking me for doing it, not just because they're Satanists, but just because there's someone that is actually giving proper information that they can refer people to. So that we didn't really anticipate either. For us, it was mainly, and I mean the main absolute, if you want to call it intent or agenda or whatever, was to get proper information out there, that if you would go to Google any person and type in Satanism South Africa, that the information we're putting out comes up. And certainly here we are today. So that was very important. And I remember when I started the path or the journey into Satanism, I was very alone. So it's not something where you could go to a Craigslist or Gumtree or whatever and find fellow Satanists, because you found a lot of strange things if you would do that.
I'm sure.
So I also thought of that, and I thought, okay, so this hopefully could be a platform where people can meet like-minded people. And it has been brilliant in that way, because we would have people from Bloemfontein sending us a message and say, I'm a Satanist, I think I'm the only one in Bloemfontein. And then 2 months later, another person in Bloemfontein, for example, would contact us and say, oh, but there's actually another Satanist in Bloemfontein. And then after vetting the people, we would actually introduce them to each other. So now we've got...
You're making connections all over
There
the
we
place.
go. So that was also very important. Not to convert people, but again, for people who are already Satanists and have been identifying with it, to actually be able to connect to each other. So that was very important to me personally.
And one of the things that was, I think I would consider myself an atheist. I don't really, I'm born Jewish, but I don't really believe in anything.
Yeah.
And I'm very ignorant when it comes to religion. I don't know a huge amount about it. But when I was doing research with my dad about this, getting ready for this interview, the one thing that I was looking at is, because we were asking, why would people follow Satan, or why would people want to join why would anyone want to be a Satanist?
Correct.
And what I was thinking was like, so in most religions, they're all pretty similar in a way. And for Satanism and the devil or Satan, he seems to be like the odd man out in a way, where he's like a polar opposite of everything else that most people know or have been taught.
Yes.
And he's kind of like this outsider. And what you were saying now is a lot of the people that join your church kind of feel like they're the only one, or they're a bit of an outsider.
100%.
Is that like a big reason people join and become part of the church, or no?
No. You can't join the sort of African Satanic Church if you are not a Satanist already. So we can't convert people when we don't intend to convert people to Satanism. So you also have to be over the age of 18. We wanted to do it 21, but because of the laws and our church council, and we decided to keep it at 18. But point being, so again, you can't convert someone. What I would like to say about Satan, and I'm sure you would understand this, and this is the thing that a lot of people don't get. So if we look at the word Satan, which has a Hebrew origin, it actually is ha-Satan, and that refers to a force more than a being. So I know for certain that in the Jewish faith, they also see it as a force, but they would see it as something to overcome, where we see it as something to embrace. So all those things that other religions would refer to as evil or sinful, we embrace those things completely. And we also see Satan as the opposer of religious tyranny, so we very much stand for that. So anything that oppresses people, we would be against it, and we would question that. So that is the absolute core of Satanism. And ultimately then to find yourself as you are, as the unique individual. So it's not a prescribed thing of this is the 10 things of what a Satanist would be like. And I think a lot of people are surprised when they start meeting other Satanists, because they don't all look like me. They don't all have tattoos. They don't. So in a way, yes, they are different, but they could also be different because they are leaders in their field. They're more excelled, or they are, I would say, of a different intellectual capacity. So we also look to nature to understand humanity. So we would see ourselves as a bit of a different type of species than the tribe, the pack, So we're very much individuals. We would
a collective of individuals.
Correct. So I always say Satanism is the religion for the other. And again, it doesn't mean it's for everybody that's different. So it doesn't mean because you feel you are being outcast that you must be a Satanist or become one.
No, and that's what I meant earlier. That's what I meant was it's people are kind of drawn to Satanism, or they're born a Satanist, and they're generally people that kind of stand out in a way.
Correct. Or they won't resonate with the status quo.
That's what I'm trying to say, but
yes.
failing.
That's fine.
I wanted to ask as well, when did you get your tattoos?
So, when I left Christianity was when I got my first tattoo, because I didn't feel I was allowed to have tattoos being a Christian. It was one of the things, and I still agree with it today. So I would actually say nobody with a tattoo can call themselves a Christian, in my honest opinion. But
what do you think about Judaism?
Yes, you could certainly get away with it.
Because I'm...
Yeah. No, definitely.
All over the place,
but it's different. I mean, I've studied a lot of different religions. So in Judaism, it's not as direct, where it says you're not allowed to put tattoos on your body. Like, anyway. So I got my first tattoo, and I will never forget it. There was this awesome lady, very voluptuous, and she had these implants that freaked me out completely, like under her skin.
Body modifications.
Yes. So I was still very new to it, and I said to her, I'm only going to get this one tattoo, and it will be my only tattoo ever. And she said, okay. And then she asked me, when is your birthday? And when I told her, she was like hysterical, and I was very offended. Like, how could you actually laugh at me? So I got this little gecko on my ankle. So that was more or less 2006. And then as time went on, anybody that is into tattoos would tell you it's something that kind of progresses, and as you go through certain, call it rites of passage if you want, you would feel as somebody who likes getting tattooed that this is now time for another piece and something else. And for me, it's very much a form of expression. And now moving away maybe from Satanism a little bit, but if we look at it metaphysically, for me...
What does metaphysically mean?
Oh, okay. So metaphysics, if we look, you have the physical world, so everything that we can see, and then meta means above that.
Okay.
So that's metaphysics. So if we look at it metaphysically, I actually believe that our tattoos are memories from past lives. So we've actually had similar markings on our bodies, and we're just remembering that.
And putting them back.
Them back. And it's a way to show the world of this is who I am, and this is what I stand for. And symbolism and symbols is a very universal language. So people will look at symbols, whatever they are, and it will evoke a certain type of feeling, whether it's positive or negative, if you believe in positive or negative. But point being, so symbols are something that people understand almost more than the spoken word. So for me, and again, personal, I'm not saying this is somebody that everybody must agree with. So for me personally, it's a way for me to express myself, and for certain people to be able to recognize me in that way, being authentic and not feeling that I'm hiding anything of who I am.
And what do some of them mean?
Which one?
What does this one on your forehead mean?
So this means I had 2,000 rand that day to put on. No, I'm joking.
You're on a budget.
Yeah, no. So the stripe for me. So I went through a period of time where I was very much indulging in plant medicine, ayahuasca and psilocybin mushrooms, and doing those journeys with shamans. So this specifically I saw in one of the journeys, is that this is something I used to have when I was in a certain tribal thing as a priest. So after I saw that, I had this intense need to actually get it done. And it took me about a year after that before I actually had it put on.
Okay. And was that part of your mediumship, or?
That was part of my search. So that was before I found Satanism. I was trying to find myself and see who I was in some form of way. So I went through, I think it was 2010, 2011, that time, where I did a lot of those plant journeys, and also ended up facilitating some of them. So yeah, and that was kind of a way for me, seeking, really, trying to find myself. Yeah.
I also want to know, in what way is Satanism similar to other religions, like, say, Judaism or
I would
Christianity?
say the ritual aspect. Although when I'm saying the ritual aspect, it's very different than any other religion, but the fact that it has ritual makes it similar, or actually would make it a religion, and the fact that there's dogma. So that we have a Bible, a satanic Bible, which is our dogma, and the fact that there is rituals. That's what ultimately makes it a religion instead of just, something.
And who wrote the Bible?
So Anton LaVey wrote the Satanic Bible in 1969. He might have written it a little bit before then, but it was published in 1969.
Can you tell me a little bit more about him?
Sure.
Was he the founder of Satanism?
No. Satanism, I would say, existed eons and eons before any other religion. It was just maybe known as paganism then, or something else. But this thing about revering oneself by performing certain rituals and things like that, that definitely existed way before. But he definitely codified Satanism. And he... If you think of San Francisco in the 1966 was when the Church of Satan, the organization in the States, was founded. So what he did, it was almost like an anti-type of hippie movement, where people say, no, but let's be realistic. Life isn't about, love and light, and that it's definitely there, but there's definitely a broad spectrum of emotions and things, and they're all valid. And we should not deny our dark side, if you want to call it that. We should actually celebrate it. So that's what he did. And by writing the Satanic Bible, it's, like I said, codifying Satanism and saying, this is what Satanism is, and this is also how you would recognize whether you are a Satanist or not. And then the sad thing, I think, a lot of times, is that a lot of people think Anton LaVey for us is the beginning and end of everything. But all he did, and where we certainly acknowledge it, is that he codified our belief, and it's almost a doorway for people to see immediately, okay, number one, this is what Satanism is, and number two, am I a Satanist or not? So in that way, it's very important, and we would tell anybody that would approach us and say, firstly, I want to join your church, for instance. We'd say, okay, have you read the Satanic Bible? And then if they say no, we would say, we suggest you do.
And do you get them to look, because I saw on your website, there's the vision and values.
Yes.
There's the 9 satanic statements and 11 satanic rules of the earth.
Correct.
So do you have to kind of check those off to qualify or to be a Satanist?
Yes, I would definitely say so.
And can I go through some of them?
Please, by all means, let's.
Cool.
It's very interesting.
I found them very interesting. And then as we go along, just stop me. So these are the vision and values that were on your website.
Well, that is of the church, yes.
So is that
is of the South
created
African
by
Satanic,
you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
So the statements and the rules and I don't know if the sins are on there, I can't remember. That is written by Anton LaVey. So, but that is, like I said, dogma, but the rest of the website is written by Audrey and myself.
Okay. So, I mean, the vision and values. We do not worship the Christian devil, but simply revere Satan as an archetype for freedom and individuality. Can you, elaborate on that a little bit?
So, I think that is in the best way that we can possibly explain to people how we see Satan. And also because I think a big misconception, and as a result of the satanic panic in South Africa and internationally, is this thing about we worship. I mean, there's no worship in Satanism. That's where it's very different from other religions. There's absolutely no worship.
Because that didn't make sense to me. If you're kind of in charge of yourself, how can you worship something else?
No, we don't. We don't. There's no worship. If there was worship in Satanism, it would be the worship of oneself. But again, it's not something that is practiced in any of our rituals. So there's no worship of any external deity. And
what kind of rituals do you guys do?
So there's
a little bit there.
Yeah, no, I can just imagine what people might be thinking. No, there's various rituals. There's the 3 main rituals that's laid out in the Satanic Bible, which is a ritual of compassion. And there's a ritual of destruction, and then there's a sexual ritual.
What's the sexual ritual?
Or the conjuring of lust ritual. So that would mainly be to attract a person to have a relationship with, whatever type of relationship you might want, whether it just being a sexual relationship or a love relationship. So that's that. That doesn't really get practiced in group setups, though. That's a ritual that a lot of people would perform by themselves.
Because I came online, it said a lot about orgies and stuff.
It would, because that's been kind of the Hollywood version, and it's been
spoofed up.
Yeah, the Satanic Panic version of we have these blood orgies, and it's kind of all of that. It's very boring actually at the end of it if you think about it.
Very vanilla.
It's a path of self-study, more than having these, elaborate parties and things like that. But we certainly won't tell people you are not allowed to do that. So that, again, that will be very unsatanic to tell people, no, you're not allowed to do those things. But we, as Satanists and as the South African Satanic Church, and I know for certainly other satanic organizations as well, we wouldn't be promoting, having orgies and stuff. If there were orgies and Satanists were present, we would be the people handing out the condoms and the lube and the towels and say, enjoy, be safe. That is Satanism. So
amazing.
Have fun, but be safe.
Be safe, yeah. And I wanted to know, before I get on to the next thing, I'll actually get on to the next thing. It says, we do not practice nor condone animal and or human sacrifice.
Yes, because that's another big misconception.
About Satanism or about you guys?
About Satanism.
Okay, so that's not actually practiced.
No, and I mean, a lot of people don't know this until they read the Satanic Bible, but in the Satanic Bible, it says very clearly that under no circumstances would a Satanist take a life, whether being an animal, a baby, a human, whatever. Because Satanism is about celebrating life. So taking a life would be anti-satanic. And then if we look to other religious scripts, again, not naming any, but it's full of sacrifices.
But why do you think people believe this about you guys?
Again, because it's projected from that religious beliefs. And remember, if you look at the Satanic Panic, certain, let's call them organizations, bodies, regime of that time, they needed the public to think that the devil is real. So if you can make people believe that there's people worshipping this devil, performing all these heinous things in the name of the devil, then the devil must be real. And then so people are scared of that devil, and they fill the churches. I mean, it's really that simple. And also, it's a way, if you can make people fear, you can control them. But sorry.
You actually said, but what you were just saying there is part of the 9 satanic statements.
It's the ninth
one. It says Satan has been the best friend of the church. Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years.
Yes.
And getting back to the sacrifices, especially animal sacrifice.
Okay.
I saw that there was I don't know if you'll remember this. I'm sure you will. But when I was researching online, something came up about a cat killer in Manenberg.
Correct.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, absolutely.
So it said that there was a cat killer in Manenberg, and that the Satanic Church had put up a 10,000 Rand reward.
We did, yeah.
Can you tell me about what was going on there?
So, during a 4-month period, up to about 3 months ago, there was this, let's call it a cat serial killer, where the bodies of cats that have been killed were found at different people's residence outside. And the body count got up to 30 plus at that time. And then, because again of misconceptions, people started this rumor in Manenberg that Satanists are out killing cats. We have 4 members in our church that lives in Manenberg. So they came to us and said, people are still saying this stuff, and the one person being very out in the community about being a Satanist. So they were almost bullied and targeted in shops there. And then we said, okay, no, sorry, but this is definitely not something that it's very unsatanic, again, to be able to do that. And we have no ritual that would require the sacrifice of anything. But who would you be sacrificing it to begin with? So we then we had a church council meeting, and we said, we need to address this issue. And then we have 4 people that's quite prominent in the corporate world that's also Satanists and part of our church. And they said, let's put money forward, and we publicly put out a reward that any information that would lead to the arrest of this cat killer, that we would reward that person.
And were they ever arrested or?
No, sadly no. But what I find very interesting is after that it stopped.
Maybe you spooked them away.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So I know that 2 dogs were confiscated at the time that was apparently involved in some way.
2 dogs?
2 dogs, yeah. So pit bulls.
Were they using the dogs to do this? Or?
Yeah, and they were using apparently the, what is it? They were using a certain type of part of the spleen of cats in dog fights. I don't know how, in training or something. So they kind of, at the end of the day, suspected. We were in contact with the police, the station commander of Manenberg at one stage. So he gave us this information. And they then confiscated the dogs as well, that they traced back to 2 of the cat killings. They could trace it back to. So when these dogs were confiscated, it was very soon after we issued the statement. All of this kind of went away, but I know for sure that no arrest was made, unfortunately.
I mean, the reason I brought this up was because I found it quite interesting and kind of the opposite of everything that you hear about Satanists and Satanism.
Yeah. And again, that's why it was so important for us to
Make your stand.
yes
in a
and
way.
start speaking. That's just one incident. I mean, there's been so many things and incidents in the media in the last 10 years, probably more further back then, where Satanism was kind of used as a scapegoat for people's psychotic behavior and things like that, because it fitted into the narrative. And again, that's why we felt it was so important that Satanists would actually come forward and start speaking up and say, sorry, no, but we are Satanists, and we have been for a while, and this is what we do, and this is what we don't do.
And this is not us.
Yeah.
And there's just the last one on the vision and values. I mean, there's more, but I'll end it
Sure.
on this one here. It says, we are not perfect and we do not have all the answers.
Like most other churches pretend to be, yeah.
So that's quite a thing to admit.
Yeah.
You know, because like
Again, being a Satanist is being completely honest about yourself and with yourself. So we are just being very honest and transparent by saying we are not perfect and we do not have all the answers, because certainly we don't.
And as the person that kind of, I mean, as one of the co-founders of the church, what are some of your responsibilities?
So I am the co-founder, and then my title in the organization is a reverend. So I conduct and facilitate certain rituals. So that is my main function. I'm actually not the spokesperson. Our spokesperson is Audrey Norton, but she's on maternity leave. She had a beautiful baby. So so that has been my title. This was just before lockdown that this was all put into place, and then lockdown came, and then we didn't conduct so much rituals anymore, and we started doing streaming of like certain rituals and things. So at that time,
I saw on Facebook.
yeah. So at that time, I was very much in charge of that, and then I also conduct weddings. We do unbaptisms, so people who want to be unbaptized, I would facilitate those type of rituals. So yeah.
And I don't know if you want to speak about this. Obviously, you feel no pressure to.
I can speak about anything if you can handle it.
Yeah, believe me, I can. Yeah. What kind of rituals? Like, what do they entail? If you were an outsider, right? Say
Yes.
you were someone that is, say like a religious Jewish person or Christian person looking from the outside. Would they find those rituals that you guys are doing weird? Or are they much more vanilla and plain than people think?
They will definitely find it weird, and they will find it very offensive, most likely.
In what way?
So, I think doing certain things in reverse, when it comes to their religion, they might find that offensive. For instance, doing an unbaptism. So, because a lot of people were baptized as babies or maybe later in life, where they might feel this was done against my will and better judgment, so now I want to undo that. So it would be seen as an unholy type of ritual. A black mass, for instance, that would be the Catholic mass in reverse. I've only performed the black mass probably 4 times in my life, and that is more of a psychodrama. Like it would be like having a bit of a like a decompression type of chamber environment where people can express certain things. So I think if an outside person from another religion would observe that, they might find it offensive. But there's nothing, nudity as well. We quite often use for a black mass, and then for the, like I said, conjuration of lust.
Nudity.
We would use a naked person on an altar, because that would bring up and stir up certain emotion for people who take part in that ritual, because we have no problem with nudity or sexuality or anything like that. So
that's another thing I actually want to ask. And in the 9 satanic statements, it says Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. And this kind of leads into my next question, where it's you said you're a gay man.
Yes.
And you're married to another man.
Yes.
In most cultures, religions, and I mean even in some places in the world, that's just like shunned and
Taboo.
very taboo. What are people's views in Satanism about homosexuality?
You mean like Satanist view?
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we, and as it again says in the Satanic Bible, there's no problem with that. As long as consenting adults that's involved, you can do what you want. And if you're not interfering with people's free will or doing anything with another person that they don't want to do, you can have a husband and wife, you can be bisexual, you can be a trans. We have a lot of trans people, again, also in our congregation and in some of our other chapters around the country, because they feel welcome. And again, not being converted to Satanism, but recognize themselves in that. So any form of sexuality that is being expressed by an adult or between adults, we absolutely find nothing wrong with it. And we actually tell people, as long as you're safe and you celebrate this in a healthy manner, we're all for it. So there's no, I know the Church of Satan, for instance, again, sorry to go back to that, but they were the first organization in the 70s already to marry 2 women or 2 men by them being able to write their own ceremonies. So, because if you look towards nature, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but you will find homosexuality in nature. It most certainly does exist there. So, but you won't find a lion mating with a hyena, for instance. So that's where we would say, okay, so things like, for instance, those things, that is completely unnatural to us. And yeah, one of the statements would say responsibility to the responsible. We don't waste our attention and love on ingrates, for instance. So
this was another thing that I saw on the this 9 satanic statements. It says, Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates.
Correct.
Ingrates. And so these were written by Anton
LaVey, yes.
LaVey. And did he have quite a sense of humor?
Yes.
Because
we don't take ourselves very seriously.
This is one thing I wanted to ask you, and I didn't want to be offensive.
No.
When I was reading these, I was kind of like,
it's tongue in the cheek.
That's what I was thinking. I was kind of giggling a little bit because yes, there's meaning behind it, but at the same time, I was like, this is pretty cool because it seems like they're having fun with it. You know?
Absolutely.
It's not like this is the law and we're going to type it out like a robot. It's like, let's have a bit of fun with this.
It's not embedded on 2 stones, holding it up like that type of thing. No, and also we kind of remind ourselves constantly, it's like not to take ourselves too seriously.
I really love that.
We are a legitimate, serious, above-board organization and a religion, but we do not quander and sit and analyze and take ourselves so seriously as I would think other religions would. Because yes, it is a lot of fun, and if you would read the Satanic Bible in its full, because then the statements are more explained in detail, he is taking the mickey out of a lot of things. Because it is funny. Because humans, and all of this is the study of humans and observing human behavior. If you observe human behavior, it is quite funny.
It's extremely funny. I mean, my favorite thing I don't drink. So when I go to bars with my friends, I just sit there and just watch people that are drinking. And it's the funniest thing, man. Like human behavior is
hilarious.
It really is very funny.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to know is, how does your church sustain itself?
So we have 4 members that are on our church council. So the 4 members that is on our church council, they are CEOs of quite big companies in this country, so they can't again go public, but most of our funding comes from that. So we don't solicit funds out of our members, or there's no joining fees. We don't have any of that.
You guys don't actually have a church, do you?
We do have a church, yes.
Because I saw online that it said that, isn't it against Satanism to have like a place that you go to
worship?
Yeah.
That would be wrong, yes. Yeah. That would
so what do you guys do in the church?
It's not a place of worship. It is a place where people would gather.
Of community.
Yeah. But again, not every Satanist would come to group rituals, because a lot of Satanists have been practicing their religion privately at their homes for so many years. So that's the way they want to do it. But again, if you look at the animal kingdom, and if you look at humans, we are social animals. So we want to get together, we want to exchange ideas, have that sense of fellowship, if you want to call it that. But the church and the building, we certainly don't use it as a place of worship. So I know what you read and it has specifically to do with that. So there isn't a pulpit and chairs. It's not a church in that way. But the word church also means the fellowship of people, congregation. It doesn't mean the actual building. So when we say sort of African Satanic Church, it doesn't mean that it's this place where there's benches and I stand behind the pulpit and we all wear black robes and things like that. People come in drag. I mean, we have transvestites as well. They would show up to services in drag. You can wear what you want. It's
It must
about
be such an
self-expression.
interesting group of people.
Of course, it's marvelous. It's the most fun people you will ever get to know in your life.
It sounds really
And not
awesome.
as scary.
It sounds very interesting.
We are not. I always say the most vicious thing about me is my farts. It's not. I'm not a. I'm not
too.
a. Yeah, I'm not a like. I don't see myself as a scary person or wanting to scare people. It's just again, it's about being able to express yourself freely as you want, not really caring that much about what other people think. You would resonate with some people or you won't. The beautiful thing to me about Satanism is it's like blinds, so it will keep certain people out and away from you. I certainly have no problem with knowing now who is sincere. Because it's also something I saw within my circle of friends is the day we actually came out and we came forward. Certain people literally perished. And remove themselves out of our social circles, and that's the beautiful thing. So people who don't actually take the effort to get to know you behind what that is, are those people really worth it? Or people who don't feel safe to be seen with you in a public space because of what other people might think of them. Those are certainly not people that I would like to spend my time with. So I know now the people that is around me and that certainly wants to be around me, they are sincere. So it's been a very good tool in that way as well, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think it's very interesting because, it's so rare to find a place, and like you were saying, you guys obviously get judged quite heavily. And when I was doing a bit of research on you, I was like, this guy is going to be such an interesting guy. I could see it through just what I was reading. I find like I said, I'm learning all about this now. I've never really done much research into religion, but I really find Satanism to be quite a quirky, interesting. It's a really interesting religion, to be honest.
And again, it would be the same thing as what you would say judgment. What would judgment say to you about the people who judge others, for instance? So Satanism is a way to observe that behavior and say, okay, so if you are judging me, aren't you scared? Is that not fear? And I always ask people that, so if you are protected or whatever, why would you be scared? I mean, we've had so many journalists, and again, initially we said yes to all the interviews, and we've kind of learned over the last year that we need to decline some of them because people just want to show the sensation of it. But I mean, if a person is so scared of this thing, this imaginary thing that doesn't exist, what would that say about their own faith? How strong would they be in that? So, and we laugh at that. We poke fun at it, and that's why I say we do not take ourselves that seriously. I don't demand respect, so I don't give two fucks, honestly. Like, if people respect me or not, I don't care because it's not about me. It's not. At the end of the day, I respect myself, and that is important. And that is what every Satanist would tell you. It's about what you think of yourself. And it's you being able to look at yourself in the mirror in the evening and in the morning and be happy and be proud of that person looking back at you. That is kind of in a nutshell what it is about. It's not about how other people perceive it, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
I find that a lot of the time, to be too serious is to be very insecure.
Yes.
A lot of the time.
I agree.
And it's so refreshing to have a chat with someone that's just like, this is me, I'm out here, and doesn't really matter what you think. And you were saying, when you started the church, it was like, we knew we were going to get backlash.
Of course.
But this is us. This is our plan. This is our vision. And we're sticking to our guns, no matter what people think. And I really respect that about you.
Thank you.
And just before we end off.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you want to cover? Anything else that you think is really important to mention?
No, I think we've covered a lot. I think, our website again is a very user-friendly platform, and we do put a lot of information and time into it. And it's not to convert people, but I think if people are interested to understand and kind of to know what it's about, it's a good platform to go to. So I think that's maybe important to mention. And hail Satan. What else? No, I think that would be it.
Actually, I want to ask one more thing. How many members are part of your church?
So this is such a controversial question.
I know. I saw it online. I was like, I know you're not going to answer
We
it.
try. Okay, so what I'm at liberty to say, all right, is what we've seen by correspondence and by capturing certain data that we have. In South Africa at the moment, there's just over 12,000 Satanists. Not all of them are members. You also don't have to belong to a satanic organization to be a Satanist. That's the other thing I should maybe mention. So we're not saying you can only be a Satanist if you belong to an organization like ours. But in South Africa, legitimately people who read the Satanic Bible and have been practicing Satanism for at least a year, and then obviously much longer, there's just over 12,000 people.
And how do you find that out?
By, like I said, people that we have literally corresponded with, and people who have sent us, certain information, and people who have applied for membership, or just people communicating with us. There could be more, but then we wouldn't know about them. So, what I can also say is that if we just take Cape Town and the Western Cape, which is where we're mostly active at the moment, if let's say all our members would come together for a service, we won't be able to fit into like a normal type of church. It would be too small. But again, for us, it's not about numbers, because I think this is the thing where a lot of other organizations say, oh, we've got so many members, and it shows you that we are very happy with the amount of Satanists. I know that Satanism would never be a religion for the majority. It will always be a minority religion, and it needs to be that. It is not a religion, like I said, for the herd, and we don't want it to be that. We just want Satanists, people who know that they are Satanists, being able to have access to, let's call it the network, being able to connect with each other, and for Satanism to be represented properly. To me, that's what it's about at the end of the day. It's not really about the numbers. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming down today.
Thank you.
It's been very, very interesting. And I really have learned a lot. And I hope you guys have as well. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the 5th episode of the Wide Awake podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it and are still wide awake as always. Awesome. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.